Jerry Foster is in the Songwriters Hall of Fame. How many cuts did you have with Mickey Gilley?
Mickey Gilley, 19.
19 songs,
Yes.
Mickey Gilley. How many did Jerryleelewis?
21.
21 songs for Jerryleelewis, including 39 Holden?
Yes, that was the last one.
But he did not have an Elvis cut. And
No.
you're going to find out why right now.
Felton Jarvis called Bill Hall and said, Elvis wants a Foster and Rush song. He said, they know me, and they will know what I'm talking about when we're going to go back to kind of like what I used to do. And so Bill and I got together. We had to, Hall ran me down Saturday night. I don't know how in the world he found me to tell me that. And he said, you got to write tomorrow. And I said, well, Colonel, tomorrow's Sunday. He said, I know. We got to put this, FedEx got to pick this up Monday. And then he told me what it was, what Elvis was looking for. And so Ben Rice came in, well, the other writers heard about it. So the publisher can't say, no, I can't send you a song. So they all wrote, me and Bill just waited till they got through. We knocked the thing out in about 30 minutes, and Bill put it down. It was called Stirring Up Feelings. And it was kind of a takeoff on like what he used to do back in the 50s, up-tempo thing. And Felton called back on Wednesday and said, told Hall, so Elvis listened to the songs, he didn't like any of them except the Foster and Rice song. He came in to record. They had the studio booked for a week at Creative Workshop. He stayed in town 2 hours and got sick. They put him in a hotel Quality Inn down from Nissan Stadium here. He stayed 2 hours, got sick, left, never got back in the studio. And it, like to wreck me, everybody heard about that song. It leaked out. Billy Sherrill called, wanting to do it on somebody. And Elvis still got a hold on it. So, and I ran Lamar Fike down in the studio, and I said, Lamar, they're driving me crazy about this song. And he said, Jerry, don't do it. He said, I've heard him work it up. He said, that song's going to be great for you. And he said, but if you pitch it, he'll never cut one of your songs again. 2 weeks later, I'm getting my hair cut, and the radio was on. They said Elvis died today in Memphis.
So you never had an Elvis cut, but you do have an Elvis story about Cheeseburger.
Yes. What was happening was I was still in the Marine Corps, and I'm working on weekends at the biggest club in Savannah, seats 650 people. Elvis has got booked at the sports arena. It's sold out. And because I was on TV, the mayor got me in. I stood about maybe 20 feet from the stage and watched Elvis do his show. I felt sorry for everybody before him because every time, instead of applauding, his little girls would stomp her feet and holler, we want Elvis, you know. Suddenly one comedian came out and said, I would like for him to come in too, but he's not here yet. We're just killing time. He's trying to get through his show. I understand that happened to him every time he worked it. Anyway, little did I know, when I was watching him about 13 years later, that would be my band. They worked for me, yeah. Well, after the show, I went and picked up my guitar player. He wasn't in the Marine Corps, but he lived in Beaufort. And my drummer cut Rock Around the Clock with Bill Haley. He was in field music in the Marine Corps. And so we got in the car and we start back to the base. And there's this little restaurant, I knew where it was right on the road. And I said, 2 cars. I said, we can get some food real quick here, let's just go in there. So we went in, it was, the waitress was also the cashier and a cook, that's all it was. So we got seated and the drummer said, Jerry, I'm all right, just leave me in the car, I'm gonna sleep. So he was asleep in the back seat. And she came on, I ordered 2 cheeseburgers, an order of fries, and a Pepsi. And she went to turn the order in, and when she did, Elvis walked in with his 2 cousins. And I said, Elvis, I saw your show tonight. I didn't hear a word you said. Those little girls were screaming so loud. And he kind of laughed. And the cousins went and got a table a little further out. And he said the show's always in the audience. And I said, well, I have a TV show. I said, I'm in the Marine Corps, but I'm from Southeast Missouri, and I know you played some of those little clubs up there when you were on Sun. He said, yeah, I said you worked at the B&B Club in Gobbler. I knew he wrote a bad check for that show. He kind of smiled and said, yeah. And so we was doing that kind of talk, and I said, would you like to sit down? He walked over and sat next to me. Here comes the waitress. He took his order, 2 cheeseburgers, order of fries. Now she goes, turn that in. Well, we'd been talking for a while, so wasn't very much time went by, and he asked me, he said, Jerry, you know the way to Charlotte, North Carolina? And I said, yeah. So I gave him verbal directions, and we sat there and talked a little bit, and then here comes the waitress, and she's got this order, and she looked at both of us and said, who gets this? Well, he didn't know what I'd ordered. So both of us said, I do, at the same time, and I said, Elvis, that's my order. I'll split it with you, but I'm starving to death, so when yours get here, I want mine back. He said, a deal's a deal, man. And what he wanted to talk about was he had just auditioned for the movies. And I said, do you know what you're going to do? Yeah. And I said, what? And he said, it's called The Rainmaker. And I think it's the part that Burt Lancaster did, where he was making it rain by beating on the drums. He really didn't say anything. Parker wouldn't let him do it because it really didn't have that much music in it, you know. So after talking for a little while about stuff like that, then he said, well, I need to go. And I said, yeah, I'm going to go too. I said, why don't you just wait a minute and I'll check out when you do, and you can follow me, and I will turn my blinker on where you turn off. And he said, okay. He was driving a white Cadillac convertible, brand new, which he later had painted purple. I found out. But he picked up a little box, a round container of pocket combs. You remember how well all the 50s were done the ducktail and all that stuff? And he looked at the waitress and he said, how much are these? He meant for one. She said, I don't even know how many's in there. There's probably 6 or 7. He said, well, $10 ought to cover it. That was a lot of money in 1956. So he handed her 10 and smiled. And I said, Elvis, I wonder if you'd do me a favor. And he said, what? And I said, my drummer's asleep out in the car. He was a drummer for Rock Around the Clock with Bill Haley, and he's in the Marine Corps with me. He said, but first I said, I want you to meet my drummer. He said, I can't do that. And I said, what do you mean you can't do that? He's going to kill me tomorrow. And he said, Jerry, what did you say? I said, I wanted you to meet my drummer, and that's why I told him you cut Rock Around the Clock with Bill Haley. He said, I'd be glad to. He said, I thought you said you wanted me to meet a woman. He said, I've been running women over in Savannah all night. That's why he was at that little restaurant. He was figuring a place where nobody knew him, and I did. I mean, so it was funny. But he was so nice to me. But he died before he could cut the song I told you about. But Elvis was, to me, one of the nicest people I ever met, and he really cared about other people. And it was obvious that he did, you know, but he was having fun. And Elvis was from January to November older than me. So he was older than me. I told you somebody what he died before I did.
And now you're 90 years old,
yes.
So Elvis would have been as well.
Elvis would have been 91. Well, he would turn 92 in January. He would have already done it, yeah, wow. January. But anyway, that's my Elvis story, and I'm really sorry that some of the people who have bad misgivings about him didn't really get a chance to meet him personally, because he is one of the nicest people I ever met. You would never know that he was a major, major star. His current record when I met him was Hound Dog and Don't Be Cruel. He had a double hit.
Wow. He was right when he was exploding.
I'm going to tell you, it was June 20th, 1956.
Wow, you remember the exact
You know why I can remember it? He asked me for directions to Charlotte. I knew he played Savannah, so when I looked it up on the internet, sure enough, July 20th.
Is that
and then
right?
the next night he was booked in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Wow.